Traveling all around the globe is something so many athletes have to do every year in order to compete. However, American athletes usually just travel between states in order to get into the regional tournaments. So stay tuned to today's video as we're going to discuss what's been happening lately in the world of athletics and travel. First up, 3 track and field athletes traveled to Indiana to compete in the NCAA East Region Preliminaries. Just a week or so ago, 3 track and field athletes had to travel all the way to the University of Indiana in Bloomington in order to compete in the NCAA East Region Preliminaries. Julia Fenerty, who is 23 years old, ran the 800-meter race, whilst both Myles Schreck and Dalton, at ages 22 and 23 respectively, competed in the hammer throw. This is the first time in years that the Big Green has actually sent out athletes to the competition, as the pandemic stopped it all for the first 2 years, and the most recent one was really hard to get into. Other than social distancing and testing as much as possible, this year the athletes also had to deal with the abnormal weather conditions and even some rain on the day of the meet. Dalton commented on the rain that affected his throwing circle during the hammer toss. Dalton said that rain had made the throwing circle wet before his event, creating a disruption that potentially could have impacted his performance due to balance concerns. Knowing weather would be a factor the whole day is something you need to be prepared for, Schreck said. You have to put mind over matter, and if you tough it out, the technique will still hold up and you can still push through it. Neither of the 2 hammer throwers did that well, sadly because of the weather, but they were still just more than happy to have had the opportunity to go in the first place. Dalton placed 35th, while Schreck placed 43rd. It wasn't the best, but it was nice for them to finally get to go after 3 years of delays. They know what they need to work on, and they need to be able to perform in abnormal conditions like on the day of the event this year. Fenerty had a decent time in this event and was super happy to have not been injured or affected by a previous injury. This was her first time running in a full season without being affected or interrupted by an injury. I'm proud that I tried my best, but I wasn't the happiest with my results, Fenerty said. I never mentally gave up at any point. I just didn't feel my best because my legs were tired from my first year completing the whole year. This was the first time for all 3 of these athletes competing on a large stage like the NCAA East. The lack of competitions over the last 3 or so years really got to them, but it also allowed them to practice as much as they needed to. They had very limited opportunities over the pandemic and even after to perform on a national level, so no one was really expecting a perfect display of skill from any of them. According to Fenerty, she holds the second fastest times in both the 1,000-meter and 800-meter in Big Green history. In the 1,000-meter, she is just 0.2 seconds behind the school record, and she explained that teamwork will help her personal goals in the upcoming year. I'm really excited about the team next year. It's growing a lot, Fenerty said. It was a great display of skill, but of course all 3 of them could improve further. What did you think about all of this? Let us know down in the comments section below. Stay tuned for some more sporting news and information. Next up, did you know about these golf rules? Counting clubs is one of the most important things in golf, but many forget. You'd think this one is pretty easy to remember, right? It's a really simple thing to remember, but it's surprising that so many golfers actually forget this one simple set. This is counting the number of clubs they have in their bags. It sounds like routine at this point for them because you are only around 14 clubs in your bag according to the rules. So this little thing of counting your clubs easily stops you from getting into trouble for having more than 14. This becomes a 2-stroke penalty if you don't have 14 clubs when the match starts. It's something so simple, yet so many people forget that it has to be done, and they forget the number of clubs in their bags. Most of the time, it's only around 1 or 2 more than they need, and it's a mistake, so they always just laugh it off. It's never really become a cheating problem though. Another is tapping putts. Placing down your putt is one of the core things that you will be doing in golf. It's what you do every time you set up the first shot. So what could go wrong? So many golf players are more than used to placing them down, and it must be super easy for them, right? Well, actually there is a really easy and simple violation that can occur when putting down your putt. Most people nowadays use soft spikes, which mean that the ground isn't injured at all when the putt is placed down. But when actual spikes are used, the ground is altered. It is against the rules to place a putt and tap it down into place due to the ground changes. If you do this, you will be dealing with a 2-stroke penalty. So it's a rule that all golfers have to stick by. This next one is very specific, but is really important even if it doesn't come up very much. You would think that most players only have one type of ball, right? Well, it's actually a rule that you are only able to use one make of ball. So you can use as many balls as you need, but they all need to be from the same company and be the exact exact same ball. This has only come up a few times as some golfers have used multiple different makes of balls in a match. This is called the one-ball condition and does not come up very much. It's in place to make sure everything is fair between all the players and to make sure everything is consistent with each player. Some balls may be slightly different, so they don't want one ball altering a player's entire game and letting them win off that. These rules are super simple, but many seem to forget the importance of them. And finally, we have Daniel Ricciardo capped his own potential. What is the one thing most Formula One drivers have for one another, regardless of what they have against them? Well, it's respect, of course. Each of these drivers have some sort of respect for one another, and it is only broken by a few actions a driver could take. They have this level of respect because they all get in their cars every weekend and get on the same track as one another. They all know the risks, and they all know the outcome that could possibly happen. At the end of the day, regardless of skill or wealth, they are all on the same playing field once that race starts. Daniel Ricciardo is an oddball in that respect, though, because of what he did to his own career. Climbing the ladder in Formula One is one of the main goals of it all. Each driver wants to climb up and possibly become world champion at some point. They pick the right team and have the right people around them to have the best chances they possibly could each time they start a championship race. The sad thing about Daniel Ricciardo is that he lost that respect for many drivers when he signed up for Renault. Because of this, he ended up stopping himself from reaching world championship and actually taking himself out of the running for a long time, if not forever at this point. So many drivers lost respect for him taking that career path, and that's why they don't really like to race with or against him. And that's the end of the video. Even though we now have vaccinations and boosters in play for COVID-19, it's not like it has affected everything in the world. Sport is one of the major things that people wanted back as soon as possible because people's careers were on the line. Most sports are back to somewhat normal, but they all still have hiccups and things that they need to keep going. Though it's not great that they are losing a player for a game or so, it's a necessary thing to get sorted. No matter what people are saying about a vaccine or their opinion on getting it or not, making sure no one is positive with the virus is very key. Players are constantly tested, and the company has to make sure that it's as limited as possible so that no one else catches it from one player or group. Hopefully things get smoother over the next few months, but time will tell. Hopefully you enjoyed this latest video. If you did, would you please let us know down in the comment section below? It would be very helpful. Make sure to like the video, comment down below, and of course subscribe to the channel with the notification bell rung. Thank you for watching today's video.